Hey, everyone, and welcome back to the Timeless Mind podcast series.
Yeah.
We're on episode 4, and today we're going to be tackling a book that has been making waves.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Atomic Habits, The Science of Small Changes and Massive Success. And, I think we've all been there, right?
Oh, yeah.
Where we get pumped about this huge goal, and then life gets in the way, and the motivation fizzles out.
Right.
So maybe this time, instead of chasing those huge transformations, we can unlock the secret to lasting change through these tiny, consistent actions.
Yeah.
So let's deep dive into this with our expert, Isabella.
I'm excited to unpack this one with you.
Awesome.
What I think is refreshing about Atomic Habits is that it doesn't just throw a bunch of theories at you.
Right.
It actually walks you through a very real story of transformation, starting with the author's own experience.
Okay. I am intrigued, so give me the lowdown.
All right. So picture this James Clear, the author. He's in high school, he's playing baseball, and gets hit in the face with a bat.
Oh, my goodness.
We're talking broken bones, messed up vision, months of recovery. It was a near-fatal accident that could have easily derailed his entire life.
Yeah, that's heavy. But he obviously bounced back.
Right.
Otherwise, he wouldn't be writing a book about success.
Exactly. And that's where the atomic habits come in.
Okay.
He couldn't just snap his fingers and be back to normal.
Right.
He had to rebuild his strength and his abilities bit by bit through consistent small efforts.
Yeah.
It's a powerful reminder that even after a major setback, small changes can lead to huge results over time.
Yeah, I'm starting to see where this atomic part comes into play.
Yeah.
It's like these tiny particles building up to something massive. Is that the idea behind this whole compounding effect he talks about?
Absolutely, just like compound interest. Those small, consistent actions accumulate over time, creating this incredible momentum.
Yeah.
Think of it like this. A plane taking off adjusts its course by just a few degrees at the start,
Okay.
but that tiny change leads to a completely different destination thousands of miles away.
Wow.
Our habits are like those tiny course adjustments, leading us to entirely different outcomes in life.
Okay. That analogy really drives it home.
Good.
So we're not looking for some quick fix. We're building a system for long-term success, right?
Right.
Speaking of systems, I noticed the book really emphasizes them over goals. What's the thinking behind that?
That's one of the most thought-provoking ideas in the book.
Interesting.
Clara argues that while goals are important for direction, they can actually be a roadblock to real progress if we're not careful.
Oh, okay.
He points out 3 key problems with goals.
All right, let's hear them. Why are goals potential problematic?
So first, everyone wants to be successful, right?
Right.
Winners and losers often share the same goals.
Okay.
So the goal itself isn't what makes the difference, it's the consistent actions.
Right.
The system that you build that actually gets you there.
Gotcha.
Second thing, achieving a goal is often a fleeting moment of victory.
Okay.
You hit your target weight, you land the promotion, then systems ensure that you maintain those results by creating those sustainable habits.
So instead of being obsessed with the finish line, we should be focusing on building the right routines to actually get us there.
Exactly. And here's the third and perhaps the most surprising problem with goals.
Okay.
They can actually hinder your happiness.
Really?
By making your happiness conditional on achieving something external, you're setting yourself up for constant striving
Right.
and never feeling truly content with where you are right now.
Oh, wow. I never thought of it that way. It's like putting your life on hold until you reach that arbitrary point in the future.
It is, and that's why Atomic Habits focuses on systems,
Okay.
building the right habits that automatically move you towards your desired outcomes and enjoying the journey itself.
Love that.
And at the heart of this system is the book's core framework, the 4 laws of behavior change.
Ah, yes. The famous 4 laws. I've heard about these. Break it down for us. How do these laws actually work in practice?
These laws are basically a set of rules for hacking your own behavior, and they apply whether you're trying to build good habits or break bad ones. They're all about understanding the cues, the cravings, the responses, and the rewards that drive our actions.
Okay, walk me through them one by one. I'm ready to hack my habits.
All right, so first we have make it obvious.
Okay.
If you want to make a good habit stick, you have to make the cue for that habit super obvious in your environment.
Gotcha.
Don't just vaguely hope you'll drink more water. Put a giant water bottle right on your desk where you can't miss it.
So it's all about creating those visual reminders.
Right. Then there's the second law, make it attractive.
Right.
This is about making the habit itself desirable, almost irresistible.
Okay.
Link it to something you already enjoy, for example, if you want to exercise more, but you dread the treadmill. Maybe you only allow yourself to listen to your favorite podcast while you're working out.
That's clever. It's like tricking your brain into associating something you have to do with something that you want to do.
Exactly. The third law is all about removing obstacles.
Okay.
Make it easy focuses on reducing friction.
Okay.
Instead of joining a gym that's a 30-minute drive away,
Right.
maybe start with some simple workouts that you can do at home. Make the good habit the path of least resistance.
This is starting to feel very doable.
Oh, yeah.
I like it. What's the final law?
The fourth law is make it satisfying.
Okay.
Our brains are wired for immediate gratification, right?
Right.
So we need to reward ourselves for those good habits, even if the ultimate payoff is down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Think about creating a visual tracker to see your progress.
Right.
Or having a small, healthy treat after a successful workout. It's about creating that positive feedback loop.
Well, so we're hacking our brain's reward system to work for us, not against us.
Yeah.
But before we even start thinking about these 4 laws, there's a crucial first step. But the book talks about the importance of awareness.
We can't change what we don't acknowledge.
Right.
Before we dive into building these new habits, we need to understand our existing ones.
All right, so how do we do that? Are we supposed to become habit detectives, constantly analyzing every little thing we do?
It's not about being obsessive, but it is about being mindful.
Okay.
The book introduces a tool called the Habits Scorecard,
Oh,
where you
wow.
actually write down your daily habits and you label them as good, bad, or neutral. It's a simple but powerful way to become aware of those automatic behaviors that we often don't even realize we're doing.
Okay, I can see how that would be helpful.
Right.
But honestly, it sounds a bit tedious.
Yeah.
Do we really have to write everything down?
Sometimes the simplest tools are the most effective.
Okay.
Think about those Japanese railway conductors who use a technique called pointing and calling.
Yeah.
They point at a signal and call out its status. It seems redundant,
Right.
but it forces them to be present and aware,
Yeah.
dramatically reducing errors.
So we're basically applying that same concept to our own habits.
Precisely by bringing those unconscious behaviors to the forefront of our minds, we gain the power to choose whether to keep them or change them. And once we've identified our habits, that's where the real fun begins.
Yeah.
We can start using strategies like habit stacking and implementation intentions to build new positive routines.
Okay, those sound interesting. Tell me more. How do we actually put these strategies into action?
Habit stacking is all about leveraging the power of existing routines.
Okay.
You take a habit that you already do consistently, like brushing your teeth,
Yeah.
and then you stack a new habit on top of it.
Okay.
So maybe you decide to floss right after you brush.
Okay.
By linking the new behavior to an established one, you're more likely to remember it and do it consistently.
That makes sense. We're basically using those existing neural pathways to our advantage.
Yeah.
What about implementation intentions? What's that all about?
That's where we get super specific and intentional.
Okay.
Instead of saying, I want to exercise more,
Right.
you create a clear plan.
Okay.
I will go for a 20-minute run every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 a.m. in the park.
Wow.
You're removing any guesswork and making the habit as automatic as possible.
So we're not just hoping that we'll do something. We're designing a system that almost forces us to act. I like that. But what about the role of our environment? Does that play a part in all of this?
Absolutely. Atomic Habits really drives home the point that we don't necessarily choose our environment, but our environment often chooses our habits.
It's like our surroundings are subtly nudging us in certain directions, whether we realize it or not. Do you have a good example of this?
There's a classic study done in the cafeteria of Massachusetts General Hospital that perfectly illustrates this.
Okay.
They simply rearranged the placement of food items. Made the healthier options more visible and convenient. And guess what? People's food choices shifted dramatically without them even consciously thinking about it.
So it's not always about willpower. It's about setting up your environment for success.
Yeah.
I can see how that applies to so many things, not just food.
Right. If your workout clothes are buried in the back of your closet, you're less likely to exercise. If your phone is constantly buzzing with notifications, you're more likely to get distracted. It's about being intentional with the cues around you.
This is giving me all sorts of ideas for redesigning my own space.
Yeah.
But what about those bad habits that are already ingrained? Is there a way to make them less tempting?
One of the best strategies is to increase friction, make those bad habits harder to do.
Okay.
If you want to watch less TV, unplug it after each use, or put the remote in a drawer. If you're trying to cut back on social media, delete those apps from your phone.
It's like creating those little obstacles that make you pause and think before you mindlessly engage in the habit.
Exactly. And there's a fascinating historical example of this, the invention of the cash register.
Okay.
Back in the day, employee theft was a huge problem, but then James Ritty came along and invented this machine that automatically locked the cash and receipts inside after each transaction.
Wait, so the cash register was basically a habit-breaking invention?
It made stealing practically impossible, not by relying on people's willpower, but by changing the system itself. Sometimes the best way to change behavior is to make that undesired action inconvenient. But even when we make those bad habits harder, we still need to find ways to make the good habits more appealing.
Right.
And that's where the whole idea of immediate rewards comes in.
Right. We talked about that earlier with the make it satisfying law. But our brains are wired for instant gratification. And a lot of good habits have delayed rewards, right?
Exactly. We live in what Clear calls a delayed return environment.
Okay.
We exercise today for health benefits down the road. We save money now for retirement in the distant future.
Right.
But our brains evolved in a world where immediate rewards were crucial for survival.
So we're basically fighting against our own wiring when we try to build those long-term good habits.
In a way, yes, that's why it's crucial to find ways to make those good habits feel good right now, even if the ultimate payoff is months or years away.
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we bridge that gap between what our brain wants now and what's good for us in the long run?
The book suggests a few clever strategies. One is using a visual tracker to mark your progress each day. It might seem simple, but seeing those little check marks or filled-in boxes can trigger a sense of accomplishment and keep you motivated.
It's like giving yourself those gold stars back in elementary school. Sometimes those little visual reminders are all we need. What else?
Another powerful technique is creating a reward system that aligns with your desired identity. This is about choosing rewards that reinforce the type of person you want to become.
Wait, can you give me an example? I'm not sure I follow.
Let's say you're trying to be more health conscious.
Right.
Your reward for exercising shouldn't be a giant pizza, right? That contradicts the identity you're trying to build.
Right.
Instead, maybe treat yourself to a healthy smoothie or a new workout outfit. It's about rewarding yourself in a way that supports your long-term vision.
I see. It's not just about any reward. It's about choosing rewards that are consistent with the person you want to be.
Precisely. It's a subtle but powerful shift in thinking. And speaking of powerful shifts, we can't forget about the role of accountability. Atomic Habits talks about the concept of a habit contract, a written agreement that outlines the consequences of not sticking to your habits.
Wait, a contract for my habits? That sounds intense.
It can be. But the idea is to add a layer of immediate pain to breaking your commitments, which makes you much more likely to follow through. There's a story in the book about Brian Harris, an entrepreneur who used a habit contract to successfully lose weight.
Okay.
He set up financial penalties for missing his goals. He had to pay his trainer or his wife if he slipped up.
Wow, that's some serious commitment.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm ready for that level of pressure.
You don't have to go to those extremes. Even having a simple accountability partner can be incredibly helpful. Knowing someone is watching and supporting you can be a powerful motivator.
It's like having that external push to keep you going, especially on those days when your motivation dips.
Exactly. And you can even use technology to your advantage. Fitness trackers, apps that share your progress with friends, online communities. There are so many ways to leverage accountability.
This is all so insightful. It feels like we're really getting a blueprint for building lasting change.
Yeah.
But Atomic Habits goes beyond just any habit,
Hmm.
right? It talks about finding those habits that are uniquely suited to you, to your strengths and interests.
You're talking about the zone of genius, right? That's one of the most empowering concepts in the book. It's about recognizing that we're not all created equal when it comes to our natural abilities, and that's okay.
Yeah.
The key is to identify those areas where we have a natural edge and focus our efforts there.
So instead of trying to be good at everything,
Mm-hmm.
we should focus on what we're naturally drawn to, the things that feel almost effortless.
Exactly. It's like playing a game where the odds are in your favor.
Oh, okay.
Think about Michael Phelps, the Olympic swimmer. He's incredibly talented, but he also has a physique that's perfectly suited for swimming. He was born to be in the water.
So it's not just about hard work. It's about finding that sweet spot where your natural abilities align with your efforts.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we actually figure out what our zone of genius is? Is it something we're just born with?
That's a great question, and one we'll delve into in the next part of our deep dive. We'll explore the role of genetics, the importance of experimentation, and the idea of finding that Goldilocks zone of challenge.
Okay, I'm hooked. Can't wait to uncover more of these secrets. All right, we're back and ready to dive into part 3 of our Atomic Habits deep dive.
Yes.
We left off talking about finding your zone of genius, Those areas where your natural talents and passions really shine.
Yeah.
But how much of that is predetermined by our genes, and how much control do we actually have?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
It is.
While genetics definitely play a role,
Yeah.
think Michael Phelps' physique for swimming.
Right.
They don't dictate your destiny.
Okay.
They're more like a starting point highlighting areas of opportunity.
Okay.
You still have the power to choose which talents to nurture and which paths to explore.
So it's not all set in stone at birth.
Yeah.
We have some agency in shaping our own zone of genius, but how do we even begin to figure out what those paths might be?
Experimentation is key. It's about stepping outside your comfort zone, trying new things, and paying attention to what genuinely excites you.
Okay.
Notice those moments where you lose track of time, where you feel that sense of flow and effortless engagement.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good sign you're tapping into something special.
So it's not always about some grand revelation. It can be as simple as noticing those activities that feel naturally rewarding and energizing.
Hmm.
And that brings us back to the Goldilocks rule we touched on earlier. Remind me again, what's that all about?
It's the idea that we're most motivated when working on tasks that are right on the edge of our current abilities.
Okay.
Not too hard, not too easy, just the right amount of challenge to keep us engaged. If a task is too easy, we get bored. If it's too difficult, we get frustrated and give up.
Right.
But when we find that sweet spot, we enter a state of flow.
Right, that feeling of being totally absorbed in an activity where time seems to fly by. We've all experienced that at some point. But even when we find that sweet spot, isn't it inevitable that some level of boredom creeps in as we get better at something?
Absolutely. Think about it. The more you practice a skill, the more routine it becomes. And routines by their nature can feel mundane at times. The key is not to avoid boredom altogether, but to learn how to work through it.
So it's not about always feeling that initial excitement. It's about showing up consistently, even when you're not feeling particularly inspired.
Exactly. And that's a big part of what separates those who achieve mastery from everyone else.
Right.
There's a great story in the book from an elite weightlifting coach who said the main difference between his most successful athletes and the rest was their ability to handle the boredom of training day after day,
Wow.
doing the same lifts over and over.
It's that grit and discipline that allows them to push through those plateaus and reach the next level. But Atomic Habits isn't just about taking action. It's also about reflection, right?
It's about regularly taking a step back to evaluate your progress, to see what's working and what's not. While habits are the foundation for mastery, they need to be combined with a system of continuous improvement to reach those elite levels of performance.
So it's like a feedback loop. You implement a habit, track your progress, analyze the results, and then make adjustments based on what you learn.
Precisely. It's not a set it and forget it approach. It's about being adaptable and willing to fine-tune your habits as you go. But sometimes the biggest obstacle to growth isn't our actions, but our beliefs. Those deeply ingrained narratives we tell ourselves about who we are and what we're capable of.
Right. We talk about how our habits shape our identity and our identity shapes our habits, but sometimes those beliefs can become limiting, can't they?
Absolutely. We can get attached to a certain version of ourselves. Even if it's holding us back, we might think, oh, I'm just not a morning person, or I'm terrible at math. These beliefs can create a sense of pride that makes us resistant to change.
It's like we build these walls around ourselves and then wonder why we're not making progress.
It is. So the first step is to become aware of those limiting beliefs. Remember that habits scorecard.
Yeah.
It can also be used to examine the beliefs driving your actions.
Oh, wait.
Ask yourself, what assumptions am I making about myself that might be holding me back?
So it's about challenging those default settings, those unconscious narratives that are running in the background of our lives.
Exactly. And once you've identified those limiting beliefs, you can start to consciously replace them with more empowering ones. It's like updating the software of your mind, rewiring those neural pathways to support your growth.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. It feels like we've gone beyond just the nuts and bolts of habit formation and really explored the deeper psychology of change.
That's what makes Atomic Habits so powerful. It's not just a self-help book. It's a framework for personal transformation. It's about understanding the intricate dance between our actions, our beliefs, and our identity.
And ultimately, it's a reminder that real change is an ongoing process, not a destination. We're all works in progress, constantly evolving and becoming.
Well said. And as we wrap up our deep dive into Atomic Habits, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought-provoking question. If our identity shapes our habits and our habits shape our identity, where does this loop truly begin? How much control do we really have over our choices?
That's a great question to ponder. It gets to the heart of free will and the power of conscious choice. It's something I'll definitely be reflecting on as I continue my own journey with Atomic Habits.
Me too. And I encourage all of our listeners to do the same time. Keep experimenting, keep reflecting, and never stop exploring the incredible potential within you.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into atomic habits. It's been a fascinating journey, and we hope you've gained some valuable insights to help you create lasting positive change in your own lives.
The pleasure was all mine. Until next time, keep those atomic habits flowing.